Blog Talk Radio.
Franchise interviews from Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia. You're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews. Welcome to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship. Listen to interviews with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And now, welcome your host, Marty McDermott, and Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 10 years now, we've been asking the entrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and we have a great show today. We're meeting with Peter Boylan to talk about the PJ's Coffee franchise opportunity. And we're going to talk about the background of the PJ's brand, the success PJ's has seen so far, how the rebranding and franchise growth opportunities, and more. We're going to talk to Peter about that in just a moment on Franchise Interviews. So stick around because we have a great show.
The Stone Coat Franchise Opportunity. Are you looking for a unique and lucrative franchise opportunity? If so, take a look at Stone Coat. With a patented process which creates a true stone finish on almost any wall or ceiling, Stone Coat is a true game-changing product in the multi-billion-dollar construction industry. Stone Coat is applied faster, cleaner, and cheaper than conventional quarried stone, which saves both time and money. With advantages in remodel and new construction of both residential and commercial projects, Stone Coat is a true crossover product. The Stone Coat franchise opportunity provides a low startup cost, low operating expenses, comprehensive training, ongoing support, and no royalty payments. For more information on the Stone Coat franchise opportunity, go to www.stonecoatfranchise.com. That's www.stonecoatfranchise.com, or call us at 972-380-2700. That's 972-380-2700.
Franchise Teacher.
Would you like to know how to franchise your concept or grow your franchise business?
Meet the experts at Franchise Teacher.
The goal of Franchise Teacher is to teach, coach, consult, and advise. The team of experts at Franchise Teacher will evaluate your business model and present you with a winning business strategy.
Franchise Teacher will help you decide whether or not your concept works and if it's franchisable. Franchise Teacher is proud to have over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors.
Franchise Teacher are developers of over a dozen franchise systems, which include brick and mortar as well as home-based concepts of nearly 3,000 combined franchise locations.
Whether you need to add more units or get more customers, Franchise Teacher can help. We will teach. Franchise Teacher will help you learn our proven system. Coach. Franchise Teacher will help you provide a game plan to succeed. Consult. Franchise Teacher will make sure you stay on track. And advise. Franchise Teacher will help you learn from our over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors. Take advantage of our free, no-obligation phone consultation. Simply go to franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032. That's franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
Hi, this is Connie McDermott, Administrative Assistant for Franchise Interviews, LLC, and you're listening to Franchise Interviews.
Franchise Interviews from Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia. You're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 10 years now, we've been asking the entrepreneurs who own one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show today. We're meeting with Peter Boylan to talk about the PJ's Coffee franchise opportunity. And we're going to talk about the background of the PJ's brand, the success PJ's has seen so far, and how they're rebranding. Hi, Peter. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning, Marty. I'm doing great. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. It's great to have you on this show, Peter. We always like to ask our guests, where are you calling from this morning, Peter?
I am actually calling from our roasting facility just outside the French Quarter in New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm looking at the Mississippi River as we speak.
Oh, that's funny. You know, I was there, Peter, in March. I was in New Orleans for the first time. It's my very first time down there, and it's such a beautiful city. And the hotel that I was staying in, I had about 2 hours to kill in. So I went downstairs, and sure enough, there was a PJ's Coffee right there. And I have to tell you, it was a perfect cup of coffee. I mean, it was just, it was unbelievable, you know. And I said, God, I wish we had one of these up here in Eastern Pennsylvania. So after I left the presentation, I grabbed a nice big cup, and I just took it with me, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to, get it, for a while, until you guys come up here. But it really is. I just had to say it's a wonderful product, and PJ's has a long history too. Peter, that I didn't realize. I mean, it's almost like 40 years you're coming on, isn't it?
That's correct. We will be celebrating our 40th birthday next year at the same time that the city of New Orleans is celebrating its 300th birthday.
That's incredible.
So the company was founded in 1978 by its namesake, a woman by the name of Phyllis Jordan, who initially started selling coffee. She initially started out selling coffee in the French market, and then got so much demand for folks wanting to actually have a cup of it that she then, within a year, opened up a small coffee shop up on Maple Street, uptown, over by Tulane University. And her initial goal was to start franchising to women. She was really focused on women-owned businesses back in the early 80s. And she and a gentleman by the name of Alfred Peet, P-E-E-T, became good friends, and they were really the backbone behind getting the Specialty Coffee Association up and running. And as a matter of fact, Phyllis was the very first female president of the Specialty Coffee Association of America back then. So we, Phyllis is actively involved in helping us promote our company, and she's continues to do great things here in New Orleans, and is one of our treasures, if you will, of the brand. So it's been a great trip. Yeah, it's been a great trip, and we're this as part of our 40th birthday, we'll be opening up our 100th store. We'll be opening up in at least a second country. So we've started international expansion as well. So there's a lot of growth on the horizon for the PJs that we're excited about.
Yeah, it does. It seems like there's a lot going on with PJs, and it's funny, Peter, because, I've always been familiar with PJs, and, even though we don't have one here in my area, nevertheless, I've always been familiar with the brand, so, and I don't know if it's because I've been involved in franchising for some time now, but, I've just always been familiar with the company. So when I had my chance to finally get my first cup, I said, okay, I get it. So what are PJ's Coffee's development plans for the future then, Peter? I mean, it seems like, the company is really getting ready to take it to another level.
We thank you very much, Marty. Yes. So we bought the brand. Phyllis had sold it back in early 2000 to Raven Brands out of Atlanta, Georgia. And at that time, we were just we were a franchisee. And then from 2000 to 2008, we grew into becoming the largest franchisee. And at that time, Raven Brands was looking to diversify or really focus on some of their core brands that they had founded and started in Atlanta. So we ended up buying the brand back in 2008, bringing it back to its roots in Atlanta. Great. And at that time, there were just right around 40 stores. And then since that time, over the last 7 years, 8 years, 9 years, we've taken that to right now we're getting ready to open up our 93rd store. We've got expansion plans in Southeast Asia with master franchisees. We've got expansion plans in the Middle East with master franchisees. And then we've just started signing up additional master franchises in the state of Colorado, in the state of Virginia, Maryland, Washington, D.C. So we're taking an active approach as part of this rebranding effort to really expand the branding and get it out there where folks can experience exactly what you experienced when you're in our coffee shop here in New Orleans. And thank you for your business, by the way. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. And I get it, Peter. I imagine a lot of people come into a PJ's and they say, God, I wish I owned one of these things, because there was there was a long line, but of course it was moving fast at the same time, and it's just the smell, it just kind of like draws you in like a magnet, doesn't it? It just kind of like pulls you in there, so it really
does. So I was just going to say, so you mentioned the lines, and one of the things I think that we do a little bit differently in the operational aspects are we really try to make a personal interaction with each customer that comes in. Mm-hmm. So instead of passing a cup, somebody taking an order, somebody making your drink, and passing it down the line, the person you talk to at the counter will be the person that will interact with you throughout your transaction to make sure that your coffee is made correctly, that your muffin or your breakfast or lunch sandwich is heated to your liking. Right. So that's one of the differentiators. But I think we've gotten it down to where the flow through the restaurant, gets people through in a very timely fashion, if you will.
Exactly. I was reading, Peter, about the relationship PJ's Coffee has with there's El Terrerito farm in Honduras. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, because I thought that was really interesting.
Absolutely. I'd love to. Thank you for asking. So, of course, we're already Rainforest certified. We're Fair Trade certified. And we are starting up something that we're calling direct trade. So we adopted a farm in the Copan region of Honduras from a gentleman that was born and raised in Honduras, moved to the United States as a youngster, became very, very successful, and then reinvested his success back into his hometown in Copan by buying 225 acres. And he lives down there half the year, and he's got a great team down there that runs this farm. And we support during the major part of the picking season, there's probably about 100 to 150 different pickers, and they all bring their families down to the farm, and we buy all the coffee off of this farm. The farm is completely self-sustaining. It has its own barn with goats for milking, with cows for milking. It has a tilapia pond, where they get fish. Interspersed amongst the coffee plants, there are mango trees, banana trees. So the entire operation is completely self-sustaining, number one. And then number two, down in that region, you'll find that on average, a picker will earn about $10 a day. But on El Terrerito Farms, we're paying that picker $15 a day. To make sure that they are able to support their families and in such a manner that it continues to be self-sustaining. And the products it's all Arabica beans, so they're grown high up. And if you ever get a chance, we'd love to bring you down. We really get an appreciation for how fit these people are as well when they're walking up and down these hillsides with 100, 150 pounds of coffee on their back. So that's one of our prides that we advertise actively in all our stores. Matter of fact, we just had our annual conference, and our top franchisee, we're bringing her down. The two top franchisees, actually, we're bringing them down to Honduras in December so that they can experience the farm and see what it's like to, truly from the farm, bringing that coffee bean all the way to making a perfect cup of coffee.
It really gives you an appreciation for the franchise, and it really does add to, I think, the character and the personality of the brand, doesn't it, Peter?
It absolutely does. I mean, when you're down there and you see these families and you see the impact that you have on these families, it gives you a sense of accomplishment, a sense of pride, and they're part of our family. We had several members from the farm come to our conference. Matter of fact, one of the gentlemen, Marcial, who's Marcial's probably 30 years old. His first time on an airplane, his first time to the United States of America. And was just interacting with all the franchisees. So we're very, very proud of that, and that's one of the unique things that certainly distinguishes us from many of our competitors. And we're in the process of looking at adopting a second farm as well, and really expanding on this notion of direct trade so that our consumers can see the impact they're having on lives as well.
I think that's terrific. And PJ's Coffee, I mean, is there's a product line too. Of course, it's beyond coffee, Peter. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, about some of the other products that PJ's Coffee does offer. I did get something to eat as well when I was there, of course. And that was fantastic.
Absolutely, and we love that. So we have a full line of muffins and croissants. My favorite happens to be an almond croissant, along with along with a variety of breakfast sandwiches and lunch sandwiches. You know, I think one of the unique things that we've done is we've worked with Ochsner Healthcare System, which is a large healthcare system here in New Orleans, to build food offerings that are that are good for you. And what we've done is within Ochsner, within their hospital system, we have several PJs, and we're calling these wellness spots where we make sure that guests do have an opportunity to have healthier options. So it's your, you know, anywhere from an egg white and turkey sausage sandwich, you know, to a nice blueberry muffin. So there is a wide variety, fresh fruit, a wide variety of you know, cold-based beverages as well. Probably one of the things we're best known for is our iced coffee. So we really take pride in that we were one of the very first pioneers of the notion of iced coffee, and that that iced coffee is made with tender care and love over a 24-hour period. That we're steeping the beans to remove that acidity, remove that bitterness, so that when you do have it 24 hours later, it's a very pleasant experience with iced coffee. So it's not brewed; it's all steeped, and that's probably one of our biggest sellers. And then the other thing that's a differentiator is we've got a thing called a granita that you would associate with some type of like a smoothie or something like that. But we have a granita machine that we also flavor and use some of that iced coffee product. That in the summertime here in New Orleans, a granita is perfect for when it's 90 degrees outside and you want something to cool you down. Yeah, exactly.
That's terrific. And the health aspect is fantastic, Peter, because it's hard, you know, I mean, when you're on the go in the morning and you're in the rush and, you know, you say, God, who has time to even think about, you know, health? And so you make it easier for the consumers, you know, to have that health alternative, you know, knowing that when you go into a PJ's, you know, that you are getting something healthier, which is, I think, really fantastic, and it makes it easier for the consumers. When we're talking about the coffee industry, I mean, it's huge. I mean, you know better than I do, Peter. I mean, it seems like it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Maybe you could talk about the coffee industry as a whole.
Absolutely. I just gave a tour here actually this morning to a couple of our current partners. And the question I always start off with is I let them know that coffee is the second most traded commodity in the world. And then I pose to them, what is the first most traded commodity in the world? And it typically leads people down a path of, you know, they're thinking of other food items, orange juice or whatever. But the most traded commodity in the world, if you think about it, is oil. And right behind oil is coffee. So that gives you an idea. Yeah, that gives you an idea of just how big the coffee market is. So it's $100 billion and growing.
Wow.
And the other interesting fact, you know, and then you go, well, why is it growing? How is it growing so much? And one of the other interesting pieces of trivia that I love is, you know, if you look at if you go talk to a sommelier or someone like that, wine typically has 150, I think, to 175 different types of taste profiles when they're telling you it tastes like peach or it tastes like apple. And then you compare that to the coffee plant and the coffee bean. And the coffee bean, when you look at the flavor, there are over 700 different profies, different taste profiles that a cup of coffee.
I did not know that.
So,
wow, that's fantastic. I'm going to have to use that trivia.
You start looking at that.
I was going to say, I teach marketing, Peter. I'm going to use that. That's going to be one of my questions. I always do like a little marketing trivia, you know, because I had no idea that there was that much variety in the coffee business. That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is. I think one of the things that we're going to continue to do a better job of is educating that consumer and making sure that we're finding that consumer that understands the craftsmanship around making a cup of coffee and having a great hospitable experience in one of our stores. And one of the things I think that also differentiates us is that we have always been serving origin-based coffee. So you can come into a PJ's and get if you wanted a cup of Papua New Guinea or you wanted a cup of Sumatra, you can get that right alongside if you wanted a blend. Where if you go to many of the other places where you go to get a cup of coffee, it's all blended and they've got a fancy name on our stuff. But we stand by the origin-based coffee, so we know exactly where that bean came from, and we'll give you, if you want a cup of Guatemalan, you'll get a cup of Guatemalan. If you want a cup from El Terrerito Farms, we'll make sure that you get a cup from El Terrerito Farms. So that notion of really of focusing on the origin of the bean and telling that story to the consumer also helps them appreciate, again, those 700 different taste profiles you could potentially have in beans from around the world.
Coffee is one of those industries, Peter, that will, just never go out of business. I mean, it's always going to be around, as you were saying. It's so big and it's addicting. I love coffee. I mean, I always say to my wife, if the doctor told me that I had to stop drinking coffee, I just won't do it. It's just it's just been part of my culture and life for such a long time now. It's just so good, and you do. You taste that difference. And it seems like consumers today are becoming a little bit more educated, aren't they, when it comes to their coffee? They're becoming more demanding when it comes to their coffee, would you say?
Yeah, they absolutely are. And I think that's that plays nicely into where our competitive advantage is in terms of this notion of the origin-based beans, and then offering a wider variety of ways to serve that, whether it be flavored iced coffee, whether it be the granita machine, as I was talking about, or just truly the ability to get an espresso that, hey, I'd like a shot of espresso with a Papua New Guinea bean with a medium roast. So that ability to kind of get a specific order helps people become smarter on all these different aspects of the coffee industry. And it's a lot of fun. And I enjoy it very much.
It's true. Coffee is a fun industry if you think about it. I mean, the smell, the environment. I mean, it's and coffee is not just the good itself. I mean, it's an experience, isn't it, Peter? When you go into a PJ's Coffees, that's what I got. Is I left with a warm feeling, and the experience is certainly part of it, isn't it?
Well, it absolutely is. And in PJ's, we went through a rebranding process, and we talked about we want to make sure that the folks that are coming into our stores and are tasting our product realize that it's about craftsmanship. That it is a story about a skilled farmer working towards a better life. That it's about it's about being rooted. And in us, it's this notion of expanding the spirit of New Orleans. And it's about hospitality, treating each guest like a neighbor. And it's this experience of people gathering around. We look and say, many people, the day part is where people are, the morning day parts where people are starting their day. And how do we inspire everybody to have a better day? So we refer to it commonly as the soul. We like to refer to ourselves as the soul of coffee. And that's what makes us different.
That's fantastic. The majority of our listeners, Peter, we call them aspiring franchipreneurs. Most of them have it in their mind, that they want to get into franchising. What types of characteristics do you look for then in your franchisees for PJ's?
So I would say somebody that is passionate about coffee, and then as they look more into our brand and our brand truth, that what they're reading is what they like. They need to be aligned with our core values. We've got some core values within our company. I'm PJ's is one of the brands in the company called Ballard Brands. We have a total of about 5 or 6 different restaurant brands, and PJ's is one of those. And within within our company, we've got these core values where we value each person, and we've come up with an acronym that is I am gifted, so that every person knows that they add value to the team, and that stands for integrity, accountability, goal-oriented, innovative-oriented, with a team focus, entrepreneurial, and driven. And all those words, if you put them together, will spell out I am gifted. So that would be one of the things. You're looking for folks that are willing to spend the first 12 to 18 months in the store and learn their operations hands-on. A majority of just over half right now, so I can say a majority of our franchisees are female. We've already been named one of the best franchisees for women that are focused on franchising. We like the husband and wife teams. A lot of those work very, very well. We've started to take an increased focus on veterans, and our veterans I'm a veteran myself from the 82nd Airborne Division, and so veterans get a 20% discount off their franchise fees. And basic business knowledge, so you don't have to come from a business background at all. But somebody that wants to succeed, that has the ability to lead, somebody that likes being around people, and is passionate about what they do. I would say that would describe our ideal candidate, if you will.
That's terrific. It sounds like Phyllis Jordan's plan, I guess, kind of sort of worked. You were mentioning in the beginning, Peter, that she was kind of like she was looking for female franchisees. And it's interesting when you look at franchising as a whole. It seems like, of course, it's more male dominated than female dominated. So to be at that, like 50% or almost half of your franchisees being female, I think that really adds to the character of the franchise as well, too, doesn't it?
Oh, it absolutely does. And there's so much. Our franchisees is such a diverse population, and the ability to gain a wide variety of perspectives. So just last month we had our annual conference, and as we go through how we did over the past year and where we're going in the future, to get that wide variety of perspectives is just absolutely invaluable. I mean, you can't put a price on it. And it really has become who we are. So this notion of recruiting veterans, recruiting women, recruiting minorities. Again, we're looking at folks that are passionate about coffee, that are wanting to grow and be part of a team that has a passion around success.
That's terrific. I imagine the training, Peter, once you decide you do like them, they like you, and they want to come on board as a franchisee. I mean, they would come down to New Orleans for the training. Is that how it works?
Absolutely. So we bring them down to New Orleans and put them through an in-store training process for a couple weeks. And then we participate with them throughout the store opening process. So typically within 6 to 9 months, ideally, is when, after you've signed that, you're going to be opening up a store. And then all through that process, you're guided with our development team in terms of real estate selection, in terms of putting the building plans together. And then when you're set to do your opening, our franchise operations team comes out a couple weeks before your opening to make sure that you're getting additional training in your store, and then for a week or so afterwards, while you're opened, as part of that grand opening, to make sure that we've crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's, and that we're that everyone is fully comfortable with what they need to do in order to succeed. So it's absolutely a team approach, throughout the sales process, as well as the onboarding and opening process, and then on into the future. So many of our franchisees are our growth. Much of our growth is organic. So where franchisees that initially bought a store are now saying, "Hey, I want to expand and I want to buy." For example, we just sold a nice piece of territory in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. So, and that's to an existing franchisee. So that notion of that organic growth, I think, also speaks volumes about how happy our franchisees are and how well we work together.
That's terrific. And I guess, the location, of course, is important for PJ's, but it doesn't seem like you need a lot of space either, Peter, to open up a PJ's Coffee. How much space would be a typical scenario? Yeah,
no. So a traditional cafe is anywhere from 800 to 1,000, maybe 1,500 square feet. Right. And, so it does not require a lot of space. We've put kiosks in some places. We've got, food trucks in some places. And then, to be honest, we've got a couple standalone locations that are 2,500 to 3,000 square feet. But, typically to get started, you're looking in the, 1,000 to 1,200 square foot range that allows you to get everything you need in terms of back of the house, and then front of the house as well. And we're finding that the drive-through, we're looking for locations that also have a drive-through, and that typically tends to help as well, which I'm typically the guy that walks in because I like the interaction. Right. But in our hurried, busy world, the drive-through is becoming almost a necessity, unfortunately.
Of course. What's a typical day like for a PJ's Coffee franchisee, Peter? For our listeners who might be interested in this industry, but they've never really worked in this type of industry. How do you describe a typical day for a franchisee?
Yeah, I would say you're probably in the store by 5:30. Depending upon what your demographic is, it might be that's for an opening at 6 to make sure that everything is up and running and that you've got your coffee brewed, so that first customer walks in at 6 o'clock. You're prepared with already fresh coffee, that all your food products are fresh out and look appealing, and that you've stocked your cooler, and so you're starting at about 6 o'clock, and then you're going to have your morning rush that you'll be working. You'll be quite busy. The time will fly by, and before you know it, it's 11 o'clock. And you get a little bit of a break at 11 o'clock where you'll kind of retool and re-inventory, and then you're going to have a lunch day part as well. And then that lunch day part, starts shortly thereafter and will take you into the 2 o'clock range. And I'd say, your afternoons, you'll get some folks that are coming in to just sit down and relax, either do some studying or use the Wi-Fi, with some type of a snack day part. But typically your day is ending, right around 7 or 8 o'clock, and you're home, you're closing up the shop, doing inventory, getting yourself set up for another successful day the next morning. And I'd say one of the key pieces is making sure you have a great team in place. So we're all about teamwork. Right. That's why it's one of our core values, and making sure that everyone understands what their role is and how they contribute to the team to make that each location successful.
That's terrific. You've been involved in franchising for some time now, Peter. What advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise? Because as you know, there really is, there's so many different franchise opportunities out there today. And we find that, when people decide that they want to get into franchising, they become a little bit overwhelmed, because there is so much out there. So from everything you've learned up to this point, what advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise?
I would say do your research would be point number one. Including things like listening to franchise interviews.
Thank you.
and I would say, point number two is go through the process of what are you passionate about.
Right.
I think that's. And then point number three would be what businesses do you use in your everyday life? So do you go out for coffee? Do you do you use some type of a cleaning service? So, because there's a wide variety of franchising opportunities out there. So it's find what you're passionate about. Find what do you already use today. And then I think, once you do that, then you start doing some research on what the opportunities are there to where you've narrowed it down to 2 or 3 opportunities. And then you kind of go through a final selection process. One of our recent, we signed a 10-store deal in Houston, Texas. And our franchisee there, he had determined he had some roots in New Orleans, and he had narrowed it down between us and another food concept, if you will.
Right.
And so he had done all those things, and he ended up selecting us for many reasons we've talked about today. But he went through that process, and I think that I thought was he did it the right way of finding out what did he know, what was he passionate about, what's he already using, kind of using today, and then he did his research and he made a decision that fit within his financial capabilities. So that's one of the other advantages when you look at us. It's not as capital intensive, so it's a little bit easier to get into. And it's a little simpler operation, so it's a little easier to get into, and it's a little easier, I think, to be successful.
Yeah, what I love about your model too, Peter, is that, you have that repeat customer factor. I mean, I guess after a while, your franchisees, they recognize the same faces every single day, don't they? And it's nice to have that every single day, because coffee is something that you drink every single day, or sometimes twice a day even, So, to have that, it must be easier to have customer relationships with your clients or your customers.
I've got a funny story. Yeah, I've got a funny story about that. So I've got one. We've got one client that visits a store just outside New Orleans, and every time this client pulls up, when they walk in, their cup of coffee is waiting on the counter, and one day he pulled up and his cup of coffee wasn't there, and he went to the counter and he said, and he looked at him and they go, "Oh goodness." And they started making his coffee, and the girl came and delivered his cup of coffee, and she looked at him and she said, "You bought a new car, didn't you?" And he started laughing. He goes, "Oh, yes, I did." That's why they didn't recognize him, because they knew exactly when he pulled up what kind of car he drove, and he had bought a new car, and so that's what threw them off when he had walked into the store. So yes, that notion of repeat guests, and what many of my franchisees will always hear me say is, just having a lot of experience also in the restaurant industry, is this is about having people put in what we call butts in seats. So having people come into the store, having them come in on more than one occasion. So come in for breakfast, come in for lunch, bring your friends, and then how do I get you to try something new? Hey, you come in and always order a cup of coffee. Why don't you try an almond croissant with your cup of coffee? Or hey, why don't you take take a sandwich to go or take some fruit to go.
Right.
So it's about occasion. How do you get that consumer to get more engaged with more of your menu offerings, and how do you get that consumer to come back more often? And we've been very successful with that simply by knowing who our consumer is, and they become very loyal customers. We do have a very loyal following amongst our customer base.
Yeah, and that loyalty is so important. You know, it makes business much easier, of course, when you have that customer loyalty. And even though the interaction might be semi-short, you know, over that course of time, you really get to know your customers. Like you're saying, I mean, what a great story, you know, because they didn't recognize him because the gentleman had a different car, you know, but I guess over the time you get to know, you know, if they have a family, you know, where they work and all these other things. You really get to know your customers, and it makes it easier to make recommendations once you know that customer, you know, saying, by the way, have you ever, you know, considered trying this or trying that? You know, it does make the sales process easier, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's great. That's terrific. What's the best way, Peter, for our listeners to get more information on PJ's Coffee as a product, and of course, you know, mostly the franchise opportunity? Is there any websites that you'd like them to go to, or any numbers you'd like them to call?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, if you just want to buy product, you can go out to Amazon.com. You can also go to any of our websites for sure, www.ballardbrands.com or www.pjscoffee.com. And if you're interested in franchising, there'll be a link on there that'll direct you to the franchising sites as well. So I encourage you to go out and look at our parent company, Ballard Brands, as well as taking a look at PJ's. Then we've got a whole nother coffee brand that we sell in grocery stores called New Orleans Roast. That again is active and available online. So if you want to experience some great coffee, you've got two different choices. And of course, feel free to reach out to us here in New Orleans anytime if you have any questions whatsoever.
That's terrific, Peter. It's been great having you on the show. And as I said earlier, it was. I don't use the word perfect, but it really was. When I tried it, it was really the perfect cup of coffee. You know, so I highly recommend to all our listeners to try it, and they'll just get it. You know, it's just such a great product, and I'm glad I finally had the chance to have you on the show because again, I've been familiar with your brand for such a long time now, and I've never had you guys on the show. So it's been a privilege and an honor for me to finally get to speak with you, and I'd already like to invite you back next year as you continue to grow because I think PJ's is a wonderful franchise opportunity.
Absolutely, Marty. Let's do it face to face and come on down to New Orleans. We'll make sure
that would be terrific.
We'll make sure you get another great cup of coffee.
That's terrific. It's been great having you on this show, Peter, and we'll be right back with